Good morning, everybody. It is time for our weekly live training. So good morning to everybody who's with us. Just going to make sure I can see your comments on my phone. Let's see here. Sometimes it takes a minute. I got to keep refreshing. So, and that's something we learned last week. If you're in the group before I go live, you might have to refresh your browser in order to have the live stream show up. Because as we know, there's always that delay of what I see in the Zoom versus what shows up on the screen. So there we are. Okay, I think we're good. Okay. Hey, I got chapstick on my teeth. TMI, right? Okay, let's see here. All right, minimize that in the background so I don't get distracted. Okay, so welcome. We are discussing today the 3 C's. 3 C's of growing your client base. And I did a short training on this in another group that I do live training on Wednesdays. And I thought it would be really helpful for us to kind of do a deeper dive in this group, give you more information so you guys can be asking your questions and we can making sure that it's aligned with what you guys need and you understand and how you can implement it and take it and things. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about those 3 C's, right? So confidence, your content, and the connections. Those are the 3 things that really go into building your client base, that loyalty program, you know, your following, whatever that base you're looking to grow. These are the kind of the 3 elements that you really want to have in the back of your mind as you are building out your marketing plan, your strategy, your not just your content, but how are you going to be connecting? What is your messaging, your branding, right? So these are the 3 things that we want to focus on, especially coming up to 2025. It's just around the corner, right? We are like 6 weeks away for another new year to begin. So let's make sure you guys have some ideas and some strategies, some solutions that you can kind of take and start to use and implement to set yourself up for success for 2025. For those that are new, welcome. My name is Karen Kleinwort. I am your host every Tuesday to do a live training on topics that are indicative of what I'm seeing throughout not just our group, but other groups, and just in general, questions that come from clients, from, you know, I see on Instagram, TikTok, kind of what is happening. We have a theme that we kind of follow every week, but then I sometimes switch it up last minute based on influence, right? So all of a sudden, if we're getting people that are asking more questions about a certain topic, then we're going to flip that around. And I come to you as a certified coach. I've been business coaching for over 18 years. I started out in the consulting field after I left corporate, and I bring a really unique perspective and a unique approach to business coaching, and that's that mind, body, spirit. I am a Reiki master teacher. I'm a craniosacral therapist. So when I say we bring the mind, body, spirit together, I really mean it. We really pull those 3 together because I truly believe that when we set goals and we aspire to things that are in full alignment and that they're in agreement with that mind, body, spirit all together, that we're unstoppable. And we're not going to have to revisit something from the past because we made it ego-based and not necessarily heart-centered based. So we take that into consideration with everything that we do. And I try and bring that into the live trainings for you guys as well, which is why sometimes you'll see, you know, like actually it's been a while. So January, we did a training really on how does that integrate into your life and into your business, bringing that mind, body, spirit and keeping that in balance. So you'll see different things that will come into the trainings, like not necessarily business related, but they are underneath. So if you are here live, let me know, drop a live in the comments. If you are watching the replay, make sure you comment replay so that way sometimes Facebook will notify me that people are commenting on a replay so I can hop in and make sure I'm answering questions that you might be posting. This is interactive, so please post your questions as we go along. I'm going to be asking questions and I'll kind of give that pregnant pause, knowing there is a delay between what I see on Zoom and what I see on my phone for your comments. So I will allow time for you guys to post answers or post questions, and then we'll check in as we go along. And as always, at the end, we'll kind of open it up for a Q&A. So even if it's not related to the topic we're talking about today, but you have a question that you want some support on, you can jump in and ask. So that's me in a nutshell. You get me as I am. I'm pretty authentic. I work from home like most of us small business owners do. So once in a while, if you watch any of the replays, you'll hear my four-legged doorbell kind of go off. And as I said, that her ears perked up. And when that happens, we kind of just pause until she kind of chills out. But so far, knock on wood, she's been doing really great since moving my space from where I'm doing these lives from. So I think it's been working for everybody. So thank you for joining. So let's kind of get started. When you think of your clients, and we're not just talking service-based, we're talking product-based as well, right? So clients and customers, we'll use those interchangeably. When you think of your clients and your customers, what do they look like? What do they feel like to you? I'm going to make an assumption, and I might be wrong here, so correct me if I am. I'm going to make an assumption that you've done a deep dive into that perfect client, that you've done the deep dive into that avatar, that person looks like, who your perfect client is, where they are, how they speak, how they interact with their surroundings on social media, etc. So if you haven't, that's okay. Let me know, and I can send you a link to get the workbook for the avatar alignment, and it is a free resource. So just make sure you comment that if you want it, let me know and I can send you the link. So when you think of your perfect client, when you think of who that person is, what comes to mind? What comes to mind about that person? We can make some top level assumptions, right? As far as if they're male, female, either, it doesn't matter if sex isn't necessary. For me, I work with majority women. I have worked with men in the past, so I can work with both, but I prefer to work with women-owned businesses and startups. So when I look at my perfect client, I see her as female, right? And I see her as between the ages of like 28, 30 to like 55, 60. She's got some education, post-secondary education. She's been working. Most often they're a mother. So when you think of your client, what do they look and feel like? Have them in the back of your mind as we work through today. So if you've got them, let me know. If you've got the image in your mind of who that client is, or even if it's like a sketch, right? Where you just kind of it's a pencil sketch outline. You haven't filled in all the colors yet, but you have an idea. You have a pretty good idea of who it is you're going to want to market to. Let me know. Have you got that person in your mind? Okay. With that, we're going to start with confidence, right? So the 3 C's: confidence, content, and connections. When you think of that client base, you need to be really confident in a few things. The first one, right? Exactly what we were just talking about. The first thing you have to be really confident is who you're speaking to, that client. Who is that person, right? So Nicole says a female luxury travel advisor in her 30s and 40s. So she's got it pinned down, right? Like it's not just any travel advisor. It's not just anybody doing travel. It's luxury travel. And there's a difference, right? Like I think of my husband, he works in corporate, and so he travels for business. That's not luxury. Even though sometimes he goes to places and you think, oh, that would be super cool to go, but not luxury, it's business, right? So when you think, you want to know that defining piece. So for Nicole, she knows it's the luxury travel advisors. right? So she knows with that comes a certain language. Because when you're confident in who you're speaking to, right, you're able to refine your message that uses language and verbiage that they use, that they're accustomed to, that piques their interest, right? So, and when you know that, you're able to say, okay, so I know who I'm speaking to, I know how I'm going to speak to them. But the next level of your confidence comes from knowing you have the knowledge and the skill set to back up what you're saying. So for those of you that might be new in your business, you might be going, well, I have skills, but I don't know if it's relatable to what I'm now doing, right? Good morning, Missy. So you have to look at your skills and say, okay, so I have a skill here, but my client is here. I know it, I can do what I need to do for them, but it may not be obvious. So knowing what that skill, what your skill set is, what your knowledge base is, learning how to redefine it using new language that describes your skill, that describes your knowledge, so it is applicable. The majority of the time, our skills and knowledge base are absolutely transferable to a new industry. It just looks a little bit different because the language is a little bit different. So knowing that is really important, which is why knowing who your person is, who your avatar is so important, because you want to know the language so you can speak to that. Because you know your solution, right? Whatever that service is, whatever your product is a solution to what they need. And remember, when you're doing your avatar, you're not always solving a pain point, right? A lot of the language you're going to hear when marketers talk to you about knowing your client is how do you solve their pain point? And I'm going to use Nicole as an example, right? She's talking luxury travel advisor. The travel advisor might have a pain point, but the travelers, they don't have a pain point. They have a desire that that travel advisor is filling. So if you are a luxury item, product or service either, you're not solving the pain point. You are providing, fulfilling the desire. And when you understand the difference based on your product and service, the language in the messaging becomes even clearer. And when you know that, what happens to your confidence? When you realize, oh, I'm not solving a pain point. I'm actually fulfilling a desire. What happens? You have a shift of perspective, right? You get excited because all of a sudden you're going, yes, now I know what I need to be saying. Now I know how I need to be speaking to that client. And your confidence goes up. Additionally, if you realize that you have a certain skill, but you need it from like an introductory level to intermediate or advanced knowledge, what do you think you might need to do to raise your confidence in being able to support and supply the strategies and solutions to your client at that level? You're going to want to fill the gap. You're going to want to identify, this is where I'm at, this is where I need to go. So now I need to address the gap. Do I need to take a course? Do I just need to do some more reading? Do I need to learn certain definitions? Right? So with each industry, there's its own language. So when I worked in corporate, we were a publicly traded company. The language we used inside our offices was completely different than what we might be using when we're actually talking to investors, the shareholders, right? So understanding who you're talking to allows you to speak the language they understand, to use the words and the terms that they understand. For you, if there's terms, if there's definitions that you're not 100% sure, you need to learn those. Good morning, Michelle. Right? You want to understand what that language difference is so you can either learn it or become better at understanding it and using it within your own messaging. So when you know where that gap is, you can start increasing that skill level. You are able to communicate better and more on point, because then what happens with your messaging, as you're using the language that that client, potential client uses or is aware of, your message lands, it sticks, right? Last week we were talking about kind of that sticky and sweet piece. This is where it's important. So is your message speaking to that client? Because through your messaging, you're building your own confidence, but you're also building who else's confidence? Who else has to have a level of confidence in order for you to pull them in? Your client and customers, right? When you speak confidently, when you are speaking on point, I just realized I have to pause longer. The lag is a little bit longer, I think, than normal. So when you are speaking their language, they're building confidence, they're building trust in you, right? Your impact is greater. They're going to feel more confident that you can meet the needs that they need, right? So whether it be that, fulfilling of a desire or solving the pain that they might be experiencing, they have confidence and trust that you can do the job because you're aware of what they need. You're aware of how they speak, what language they use, right? The terms, the definitions, so you're using them correctly. So then they start to see you as that go-to person. And if you are, I'll use myself as an example. When I started, 18 and a half, 19 years ago, people didn't know what Reiki or craniosacral was. Like, I spent 95% of my time educating people to the language of what is Reiki, how does it work, and having to use different terms and really having to redefine it and use it. Just the language kept shifting and shifting until I was speaking in a manner that they could understand it. And the same with craniosacral. So I spent so much time educating people that to then, right, inform them about what I do, we were like, oh, it was like a 10-minute conversation when we finally got around to how I can actually help them or serve them. So fortunately now, right, 18 years later, the majority of the people have heard of the alternative therapies. They're more mainstream. So I'm not educating as much. So for you, how are you taking that messaging to ensure that it's on point and meeting them where they're at, right? Because you want to build their confidence, build their trust by making sure you're speaking not just to them, but with them, where they see you and they know you see them, right? That's the confidence piece. When you're talking about expanding your client base, you're talking about making sure that not only are you speaking from a place of confidence by using and matching and mirroring to them, but that they're confident that what they're hearing or seeing on the screen matches to what one you're offering and what they need or are looking for. So confidence, when you think of confidence for yourself, where you're at, where your client base is, or your potential client base is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your confidence that you are speaking their language, that you are messaging in a way that they hear it and see it and want to become interested? So like 1, you're like, yeah, I got a lot of work to do. I thought I would, but yeah. Or like 9 or 10, we're like, yeah, it's on point. Like 90% or more of my messaging, people read it, they understand it, they see themselves in it. Where do you guys think you are? And if you're new, you might be on the lower end, and that's okay. That just means you just have a little bit of work to do regarding your perfect client and understanding them. But that's okay. You can still say, if you are knowledgeable about your clients and what they need, what their desires are, you can still speak their language. So even if you are a new business, you can still be on the higher end because you know your skill level. When you have that number in your head, if you want to share it with us, great. If you don't, that's okay too. I want you to think about, we'll use the number 6 as an example, that we feel like, we're a pretty solid 6. Like 60% of the time, my messaging is resonating, it's kind of hitting home, people are commenting, they're engaging. I want you to think about, what's it going to take from a confidence perspective to move that up the scale, to move it from 6 to 7, or 7 to 8, and then 8 to 9? What are the steps you might need to take? What are the goals you might have to set for yourself or your business to increase the confidence, both in yourself and in your followers, your customer base, to have confidence in you? So homework is, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're coming up on Black Friday, end of the year sales. Good morning, Leah. Think about, what are the things you might need to do to increase that confidence level? And if you need help, please lean into the group, slide into my DMs. Let's help get that confidence up for you, okay? And for your customer base. The second one, this kind of rolls right in from confidence because we're talking about that messaging, right? The content. That's the second. Your content is more than just a post you're going to throw up on Instagram or a video on, TikTok kind of thing, right? Your content is the basis of your strategy. So with it, right, you are what? You're wanting to make sure that you're genuine in what you're saying and how you're saying it, that you're providing value. And we know, like, that customer goes to that, right? Know, like, trust before they actually partner with you or buy. Good morning, Sarah, right? So when we're talking about confident, like the content, we've already kind of worked through the confidence. When we're talking about content, we're talking about that. How are you educating them? How are you inspiring them? How are you informing them? How much time are you spending on each of those? And what's the call to action associated with it? So when I first started, and here I am, I'm going to age myself, right? It was pre-Facebook, right? There was no social media. So to educate, to inspire, to inform looked completely different. Like the in-person networking was the only way, right? So, or you're placing ads in a newspaper or something. The yellow pages was a big thing. So educating, what are you doing with your content to educate? Are you taking the avenue that the education is purely from educating them about you and your business, your services, your products? Are you educating them about the underlying ideas? So if you are, so Nicole was saying that she's luxury travel advisor, right? So what else could she be educating them about, as far as not just her services, right? You want to share knowledge. Knowledge is meant to be shared. Like, I feel if we try and keep our knowledge, we hold it, the sense of control, we really aren't servicing our customers or our potential customers, right? That sense of control actually is so rigid. And I don't think you can be authentic in what you say and how you share things if you try and control everything. So when you're educating, how are you educating them? Through inspiration. As we inspire people, right? A post can inspire people while still educating. We can inform them while inspiring them. And educating and informing, as much as they sound the same, they're similar, they're different in this instance, right? Educating is you want to share knowledge that will empower, that will allow them and enable them to take it and run with it, right? So these trainings are educational. I'm wanting to give you ideas and strategies and things to think about that you can take and implement right away on your own, right? I want them to be inspiring, but I also want to inform you, right? So the difference of informing is you're sharing information for them to consider, but not necessarily do on their own, where they have to circle back and come back to you, right? So with your content, right? So you're educating, you're showing your knowledge, your skills by empowering people with that information. Inspiring, what? You're building trust, right? You're building trust through support, through service, right? So a lot of people will say a servant's heart. We want to serve from our heart, right? We want to give. That's what our inspiration is. So when we're informing, we're guiding them to a conclusion, AKA your CTA, your call to action, right? So when we're thinking from a content, when you're growing your client base, you want to lean into asking yourself, is this content I'm creating, whether it be a blog or an article or a post, a story, a reel, am I educating? What's my goal with this post or this piece? So am I educating? Am I inspiring? Am I informing? And what do I want them to do with that? So if you take a look at your content right now and the strategy you've created for 2024, we'll do a little reflection. When you look back at what you've shared, what you've created and shared, can you think of the percentage of, when we think 100%, what is the percentage that you educated? What's the percentage that you inspired? And what's the percentage that you informed? So take a minute and think about those percentages. And I'll always say they don't have to be exact, right? We're just spitballing it here. If you want to share, great. You don't have to. So having those numbers, now your goal is to take a look at, what does 2025 look like? Does my education need to be different than what it was in 2024? Does what I inspire need to be different? My approach needs to be different. How am I informing? Does it need to be different? Do I need to change? What worked for each of those three things in your approach for this past year? And what didn't work? Because remember, from a sense of confidence, when you know a certain piece worked, where people like were on it and like, yes, that I get that, right? They were engaged, they were responsive, they interacted. That's confidence, where you can take that piece and you can say, that really worked. We want to take that and keep working with that format, that topic, right? Because then you're really speaking to them, because you know that's what they want to hear. The ones that were like dead in the water, you know, it got posted, it got shared, and it was dead. No interaction, you start going, okay, what didn't work about it? Was it the language? Was it the words I used? Was it the imagery that went along with it? Was it the tone? Right? So you started going, okay, can we improve it? Or do we just need to kind of not even worry about it and just leave it where it's at and start fresh from that perspective? So with your content, you want to make sure that you're speaking from that place of confidence, right? Through your education, you are able to share exactly what you do, how you do it, and how it supports the person reading it, right? Because then that builds confidence because they start to say, I want to see more of this content. I want to interact with more. She has a lot to offer. There's a value there, right? So once with the confidence grows, you're clear, you're communicating, your content starts to show that. And then that goes to the next, right? The connections. And the connections really are more than just the engagement of, people hitting the heart or the like, right? Connections mean truly being genuine, asking, engaging from a place where you are being authentic, where you really want to have the relationship. You really want to nurture it, right? And some of the ways we do that when you think of your own content is how. How do you go about ensuring that that piece of content is something that you can build a connection through? What's one of the ways you can make sure that that content triggers a response, engagement? Because remember, when you're talking about goals, do you want them to take action? Do you want them to share it? Do you want them to comment? Click the link, right? So when you're thinking of that, what is it you want them to do? Most of us, we want them to click a link, right? Follow the link, come visit my website, come learn more, right? That's the ultimate piece. But not all content is about that. Some content is merely about just getting people to comment. And making the connections means you want to almost start training your followers to be interactive. So sharing something and then say, share your thoughts below, right? Comment like what I did today, right? Comment live, right? So that way I have an idea of who's going to be here or not, right? So, and I know 11 o'clock is a weird hour. Not a lot of people are available, but it's what works for my schedule. So for you guys, how are you going to create a connection where there might not have been one before? You want to be able to ask questions, right? Open-ended questions, not just kind of like the yes or no questions. You want to start to create a dialogue. And this piece can be a little bit more difficult, more challenging, because as people comment, you want to reply to those comments, right? You want to show up and reply, but you don't want to say the same thing every time, right? So it's going to challenge you to say the same thing differently, where people are saying, oh, this is a copy and paste. She's not really asking me. She had this pre-planned all along, right? So think about what are the kinds of questions, open-ended, that you can be asking to create dialogue. And the dialogue doesn't have to be in public where it's in the comment section, right? Because your goal to nurture, to really deepen the connection is you want to take that conversation offline. You want to be able to build the trust, the confidence that they're open to you having an offline conversation. And they can only do that if they know who you are, they like what you do, and they trust you. So moving through those within your content means you need to make sure you're confident in who you're speaking to. Because if you're speaking to the wrong person, then you're not going to get them to go through that system to engage with you and have real conversation offline. And offline might be them participating in a workshop or joining a group, right? It doesn't necessarily have to mean like a one-on-one dialogue in the direct messaging or a phone call. It offline could be somewhere off of that stream, that thread. So again, when you kind of dial back, we start talking about that strategy. We go right back to the beginning of knowing your messaging is on point and that you're speaking their language. Because you can figure out pretty quickly where they're at. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, that becomes pretty apparent. But it's the language, speaking so they understand you, right? Having that confidence. So making the connection gets you dialing down deeper into knowing them that much better, because then you know what questions you're going to ask in the comments to create dialogue, to create conversation. So, right, because that's the engagement that counts. Yes, the thumbs up, the happy faces, all that counts. But we need to make it more than that when you're looking at making that connection. And, I know so many people use, AI to help create content. And it's always a great starting place, right? We want to embrace it. We want to say, yes, we're going to use it because it's going to save me time. But it's not a copy paste scenario, right? You have to make sure that whatever you're using it for becomes the draft version. So you can start looking at it from a perspective of, I need to ask the same question like 5 different ways. I don't know how to do that. Well, AI is really good at that, right? Rephrasing things. So get them to rephrase it and then take it, and you still have to tweak it to make sure it's the language that your clients and potential clients understand and resonate. Confidence, content, connections. When you're looking at growing your client base, it all begins from a place of confidence, knowing exactly who you're speaking to, how you're going to speak to them, and how you're going to make that final connection. With that, do you guys have questions? Where are you guys at? What are your thoughts? And I'm just going to sit for a second while you guys think about. And if you don't have questions, that's okay. Or if you prefer not to ask in public, that's okay too. You want to send me a message, you can do that as well. My DMs are always open. So no questions. Do you guys have any questions about anything other than what we were talking about? Do you have questions more specific that you might want to ask? No? Okay. Then that really kind of brings us to the end. We've gone over the confidence, the content, the connections, right? Those 3 main C's of growing that client base. Of course, you can bring in, clarity of communication. Those are another 2, so many. But those are the 3 that I like to focus on when I'm talking with my clients to make sure that it's resonating. Tomorrow is the Biz 101 group coaching session over on the Women's Business Resource Community. So as visitors or neighbors or my private clients, if you want to jump on that, that's at noon. Eastern time. You just have to be logged into your account. And then neighbors, you guys have your group coaching session Thursday at 10 a.m. I think that's kind of all the reminders I have. And then Mondays at 10 are always my C-suiters, the private clients. That's their supplemental hour of open office hours. So I'm available, especially tomorrow if you guys are going to jump into that, the Biz 101 group coaching. That agenda is always set by you guys. I don't come with an agenda. So good morning, Bethany. So just kind of bring whatever questions you have, and that sets the agenda for us for the hour. Okay. Well, if nobody has any questions, then I thank you all for being here. I'm grateful that you joined me today and that you listened, and hopefully this was helpful and that you got a little nugget to take away and start to consider and implement within your own marketing and messaging strategies. And I look forward to next Tuesday. I'm just thinking the week of Thanksgiving, there will not be a live that week. So there'll be one next week, and then we'll be off a week for Thanksgiving week. And then we'll pick it back up the first week of December. So that's the other reminder. I forgot to write that down, but I did remember. So, all right. If we're good, I'm good. As always, I appreciate you all. Thank you for being part of this journey. I love it. And I love being here with you guys. So I wish you an amazing day. I know here in mid-Michigan, we are having a beautiful sunny day, a little on the chilly side, but it's beautiful and sunny. So if you're here and this is your weather, get out and enjoy it. All right. Thank you. And we'll see you guys all next week.